Okay, well, thank you all for coming. This afternoon, Ray will be speaking on the esoteric implications of transplants. That's a subject that we've never actually covered before, but I think it's of interest to a lot of people now. Okay, it's all yours, Ray.
Before we start, can we have a few moments of silence, please? Thank you. The first thing I want to do is to say something about this word esoteric, because for many people it means quite a different thing from what the Theosophical Society means by esoteric. Originally, when the esoteric section started with the Theosophical Society over 100 years ago, the people who were invited to join the esoteric section had to sign a pledge. And that pledge was a sort of oath. But the oath had to be sworn on their own soul. Now you can imagine the kind of things that could happen if they broke their oath, which was sworn on their own soul. So you can see the seriousness of this term esoteric from a theosophical point of view. So if we're going to think about this term esoteric in this sense, we have to think about what is implied by the breaking of that oath, because the karmic implications or the karmic conditions that the soul would have to deal with if they broke that oath are considered to be very serious. So I consider this term esoteric in the situation that we're thinking of this afternoon as being sacred. So that's the first thing that I want you to be understanding. Now the second thing, I'm going to try to answer this question direct, but I can only express my own personal opinions as to how this was, how I come to the conclusions about this, because every student would have to find their own solution and answer to this question. So, if we have the person who has just died, a number of his organs could be transplanted to any number of people who are still alive. Now, the esoteric implications of that will depend upon where this person who has just died has progressed along their spiritual path, and how the recipients who are going to have these organs transplanted have progressed along their spiritual path. So it means that if this person who is passed has progressed a long distance along his spiritual path, then it means that the organs that are being transplanted have also gained a lot of time on the spiritual path, because as the person is making progress along his spiritual path, so the whole body is being transformed. Now, depending on these people who have the transplants, depending on where they are on their spiritual paths, will be dependent on how these organs affect these other individuals. So, for instance, if this person hasn't progressed very far on his spiritual path, and some of the people who are getting the organs have gone along their spiritual path to a fairly long degree, then obviously those organs are not going to be as good for the person who has progressed further along their spiritual path than the person whose organs are being transplanted. So basically, what we're saying is all these relationships depend on where the person who is dying and the people who are accepting the organs are on their spiritual path. So that's the second thing that I want you to notice. Now the third thing I want you to take cognizance of is this septenary constitution. Now this septenary constitution is the way that the Theosophical Society expresses the development of the human being. Now, along this side here, I've just portrayed the spirit, soul and body that we in the West tend to think of as the human constitution. Now, because most of these religious philosophical traditions began in the East, when they transferred to the West, they seem to have lost something of their spirituality. So when we talk about spirit, soul and body here in the West, we tend to only relate that to the human being. Whereas when we go to the Eastern tradition, this is given a much more elaborate, well, I suppose it's elaborate compared with the Western tradition, but it gives a much more spiritual flavor to the human constitution. But it not only applies to human beings, it applies to every living thing that exists on this planet. So from the smallest insect to the hugest whale, this constitution still applies. So if I say that when the human being is coming into existence, spirit enters from the top, comes down all these situations until it reaches the bottom. Now by the time spirit has come down this series of bodies, then right at the bottom is what is left of spirit, because spirit is coming down into matter, and therefore what remains at the end of our physical body is referred to as the dregs. So you can see the value of a human physical body. It's virtually of no use at all. So when we're talking about these organs, then you can see in relation to the human being, the physical body is virtually of no use at all when it comes to its value to the human soul. Because it's the human soul which is the real person existing in the Constitution. So if we now think of the dregs of what spirit is coming into existence and being transplanted, you will see that they virtually of no use in relation to the spiritual development of the human soul. So I'll leave it at there because I want you to just fire your questions and I'll try to deal with them as best I can.